Okay, so this is the third video in regards to significant figures, and we're going to be converting a number from scientific notation into decimal notation. Okay, so here's the first thing that you should know. Converting a number from scientific notation into decimal notation is basically moving our decimal the number of places to the left that our exponent, or it's also called power, indicates. As an example, we could be writing a tiny number that is used to indicate the mass of an atom. So here's our first given example, 3.46 times 10 to the power negative 2. Note, the negative exponent indicates we will be moving our decimal to the left side. So if it's negative, if you have a negative exponent, you're going to be moving the decimal to the left side. So here we go. 1, 2. We're moving it 2 times. So where you see the wave, you're going to add a 0. Where you see the arrow, you're going to add a decimal. So this is what we have so far. If you put in your calculator this right here, 3.46 times 10 to the power negative 2, you're going to get for an answer 0.0346. It's important that you add this 0 to the left hand side of the decimal or your answer is wrong. This right here, it's wrong. Your answer needs to be 0.0346. This helps make the decimal more visually clear and could help avoid misreading the number. For example, in the medical field, it is especially important to include the 0 because it helps nurses avoid misreading dosage measurements. So, also keep another thing in mind. Whatever amount of sig figs that you start out with, that's the same amount of sig figs that you need to have in your final answer. Notice that we have 3 sig figs in this number. Therefore, we should have 3 sig figs in our final answer, which is what we have. Leading zeros, they never count as significant figures. So, we have basically converted from scientific notation, which is this right here, into our decimal notation. The name says it all, decimal notation. You got a decimal. All right, now our next example, 8.2 times 10 to the power negative 5. Our exponent is telling us to move our decimal 5 times to the left side. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everywhere I see waves, I'm going to add zeros. And where I see the arrow, I'm going to add a decimal. Again, to the left side of this decimal, I need to add my 0 so that way my number can be written correctly. I have 2 sig figs here, and I have 2 sig figs here as well in this number, so I know my answer is correct. All right, the next number, 4.33 times 10 to the power negative 3. Okay, so the exponent is telling me to move the decimal 3 times to the left side. So here we go. 1, 2, and 3. Where I see the waves, I add zeros. And where I see the arrow, I add a decimal. And always note that to the left side of that decimal, I need to add a 0. So therefore, this is my final answer. The negative exponent, this right here, tells you that your new number will be smaller. Also, every time you shift your decimal to the left side, you are basically dividing by 10. So when you see this right here, you are basically saying this right here, 4.33 divided by 10, divided by 10, divided by 10. Okay, so here's our next example, 7.2215 times 10 to the power negative 9. So our exponent told us to move our decimal 9 places to the left side. We're going to add our 0 to the left side of that decimal. So therefore, my final answer is this right here. All right, feel free to stop the video if you need to, and feel free to practice on these 3 problems. Okay, so my exponent is telling me to move the decimal 3 times to the left side. So therefore, my final answer needs to be 0.0042. Over here, my exponent is telling me to move 5 times the decimal to the left side. So therefore, this is my final answer. Keep in mind that leading zeros do not count as significant figures. Everything that you see right here are considered leading zeros. Even if there's a decimal present, they do not count as significant figures. If you don't know what counts as a significant figure, then you need to be watching the first video so that way you can learn the basic concepts. Notice that we have 3 sig figs in this number, which is that one, and that one, which is also the same amount of sig figs that I started with, 3 sig figs. And then the last one, my exponent is telling me to move the decimal 1 time to the left side. So here we go, 1, I put my decimal, and then to the left side of that decimal, I'm going to add a 0. So this is my final answer.